build a safe, sturdy shelter to protect your family from some seriously harsh weather. But you have absolutely no ruler, no tape measure, no perfectly marked pieces of wood. There's just no standardized way to make sure your walls are even or that your heavy roof isn't going to just collapse right on your head. Talk about stressful, right? And honestly, the daily anxiety wouldn't stop there. Imagine you're trying to trade your hard-earned food, maybe a heavy pile of meat, for some really essential stone tools. But again, you have zero access to a weighing scale. How do you know you aren't getting completely ripped off? How do you make sure the trade is actually fair? These were the literal life-or-death problems our ancestors were facing every single day. So here's the thing. For early hunter-gatherers, exact numbers just didn't exist yet. Measurement didn't start off as this complex mathematical thing. It literally just started with comparison. They didn't look at a branch and think, ah, yes, that is exactly 3 feet long. They just knew, okay, this stick is visibly longer than that one, or this rock definitely feels heavier than that rock. Nature itself was their very first measuring tool. It was all about relating one physical object directly to another one. Once early humans really grasped the concept of comparison, they started using what they literally always had on hand. Well, they used their hands and the rest of their bodies. One finger, a hand, a palm, a foot, an arm, a single stride. These natural body parts rapidly became standard units of measurement for different tribes. You might build a shelter that's exactly 6 arm lengths wide, or craft a spear to be exactly as tall as you are. A canoe could be 20 footsteps long. It was just so incredibly practical. Think about this for a second. How could early humans estimate distance before roads even existed? Long before perfectly paved highways and, convenient little mile markers, people were still traveling huge distances to hunt, migrate, and eventually trade. But without a map divided into kilometers or miles, how on earth did they know how far they had gone, or exactly how much further they had to go? The answer is actually beautifully simple. They counted their steps. They memorized that a journey wasn't 15 kilometers, but rather, say, 5,000 exhausting steps. Or they measured their travel by time and the elements. They'd tell each other to walk until sunset, or they'd say a destination was 2 days beyond the mountain, or maybe half a moon away. By using permanent natural landmarks like a giant tree or a roaring waterfall, they basically created the world's very first navigation system. And what about measuring time? I mean, time is totally invisible, but it's absolutely essential for survival. Well, they just looked up. The sky became a giant visual calendar. The rising sun meant morning. The highest sun meant midday. The setting sun meant the end of an exhausting workday. At night, the stars were their clocks. And the moon, with its changing phases, that became the world's first true calendar, helping hunters track migrations and farmers predict the seasons. Nature was literally the greatest clock ever built. As farming and commerce started really growing, this massive challenge popped up. If one person exchanged a pile of meat for a stack of stone tools, how could both people know the trade was exactly equal? Trade absolutely relies on fairness, right? Otherwise, things are going to collapse into conflict pretty fast. They desperately needed a way to guarantee trust between two people making a deal. And you can literally see the evolution of human problem solving here. Step 1, people just lifted objects by hand. Step 2, they judged the weight through physical experience, really feeling that downward pull. But Step 3 changed absolutely everything. Enter the balance scale. It was just a simple stick, balanced perfectly on a pivot with objects on either side. When both sides rested completely flat, boom, the weights were undeniably equal. This one ingeniously simple invention transformed trade forever by creating a visible, trusted standard of fairness. And as farming really took hold, the land itself became incredibly valuable. Families needed very clear boundaries so they wouldn't end up in intense disputes with their neighbors. So long before we had highly advanced satellites orbiting the planet, ancient surveyors were stretching physical ropes across their muddy fields. By tying knots at equal lengths along a long rope, they created straight lines to divide up farmland, organize early villages, and eventually build roads and sprawling cities. They mapped the earth with nothing but ropes and wooden stakes. To build these monumental structures, they used tools that were just brilliantly simple. Ropes, wooden squares, plumb lines, shadow measurements. Using techniques like hanging a heavy stone on a string to find true vertical, or stretching a rope super tight to get a perfectly straight line, ancient builders achieved this remarkable, lasting accuracy. I mean, these are the exact tools that created mysterious stone circles, massive towering temples, and those sweeping pyramids that somehow are still standing today. But perhaps their greatest measurement of all wasn't even on the ground. It was up in the heavens. Ancient people vividly noticed that bright stars returned to the exact same positions every single year. They tracked complex constellations, predicted the changing seasons, and even observed spectacular solar eclipses, all just by measuring the shifting height of the sun. They literally mapped the universe using only their naked eyes. Without a single telescope, these ancient sky measurements gave birth to the entire science of astronomy. Because measurement did way more than just solve daily problems, it literally transformed the human experience. It took us from basic survival, like improving our hunting and enabling large-scale farming, and transformed that survival into advanced civilization. Without accurate measurement, sprawling cities could never grow, sturdy bridges could never cross wide rivers, and rigorous science could never even begin. Measurement is the hidden architecture of all human progress. Today, obviously, we operate on a completely different level of awe-inspiring accuracy. We measure things with astonishing exactness, using pinpoint lasers, orbiting satellites, atomic clocks that flawlessly track fractions of a millisecond, and hypersensitive digital sensors. Our precision has just skyrocketed, allowing us to build microscopic computer chips and send rovers hurtling all the way to Mars. Next time you use a ruler, check the time on your phone, or follow your GPS, remember this. You're actively using an idea that began tens of thousands of years ago. You are continuing this unbroken chain of human curiosity that started when our distant ancestors first looked at the vast, intimidating world around them and asked one simple, world-changing question. How big is it?